Samantha Town is a portfolio manager at Wallace Associates situated in Dallas, Texas. This year, Town has delivered exceptional performance for one of her clients' accounts. In exchange for the performance, her client has offered her 2 front row tickets to an opera and the opportunity to meet the stage cast after the show. To ensure she does not violate the CFA standards of professional conduct, Town's most appropriate course of action would be to A. Reject the offer, B. Inform her employer after attending the opera show. I think we can rule that out right away. We should inform them before if we're going to take this. Or C. Accept the offer after obtaining written permission from both parties. So that also sounds like a fine answer. I think A or C would either be fine. The answer is going to be C in this case. And I think the key to look at here when looking at whether or not something like this should be accepted, front row tickets to an opera, and meeting the stage cast after the show, this is potentially a significant cost or benefit for the portfolio manager. However, something at this scale probably isn't going to be big enough to hurt their independence and objectivity or cause them to act better towards these clients versus other clients. So if this was something like paying an all expenses trip for weeks on end to some destination in the Caribbean, then you would probably start to get into a place where you should definitely reject the offer. So I think the key here, considering whether it would compromise independence and objectivity, I think that you would lean towards no, given the size of the gift here. Answer C. Jessica March and Adam Pocock are CFA Level III candidates and colleagues. The two regularly study together for the Level III exam. During one of their study sessions, the two individuals engage in a discussion. March. Earlier in the year, I had a discussion with Tim Martin, a Level III candidate, who said the most recent exam was very difficult. That's okay so far. You can say whether or not the exam is difficult. Difficult or not, sorry, this is Pocock now. Difficult or not, I've already told my superior that I will become a charter holder shortly following completion of the Level III exam. This sounds like a bit of a no-no. He's kind of guaranteeing that he's going to become a charter holder, which you probably shouldn't do. According to the Standards of Practice Handbook, which individual is most likely in violation? So is it March? She shared confidential information with Pocock. I think like we said earlier, this is fine to say the exam was difficult. Once you get into talking about specifics about the exam, like it tested a certain formula or topic or subset of a certain topic, that's when you get into more trouble. B, Pocock, he's made a guarantee regarding the receipt of the charter. That sounds like it's going to be our answer, something we shouldn't do. And C, March, she's engaged in discussion with Martin regarding the exam and its contents. Again, that's okay. Go with answer B. Kevin Charmer, CFA, plans to allocate shares to his clients following a recent IPO by a fast-growing IT company. According to the CFA Institute Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct, Charmer, in case of oversubscription of the issue, meaning that his clients want to buy more than they were allocated, will most likely breach his duty to clients by A, avoiding odd lot distributions. This wouldn't be a violation, so I think we can rule that out. It'd be okay if there's some odd lot distributions. You just want to make sure that you're providing equitable access to everyone who did subscribe, so they should each receive pro rata shares of what they wanted. B, not foregoing any sales himself. That sounds like it could be our answer. And C, prorating to all clients for whom the issue is appropriate. That sounds like we can rule it out, since that would be good. If you're oversubscribed, then Charmer should forego any shares that he would have received as a part of his subscription and let the clients have everything that they were allocated. Answer B. Which of the following activities most likely represents market manipulation and is a violation of the CFA Institute Standards of Professional Conduct? Is it A, an investment analyst exaggerates his firm's performance to win new clients? This would be a violation, but from the standpoint of misrepresentation, not market manipulation. Exaggerating performance isn't actually doing anything to market, and it's whether it's going up or down. B, a global hedge fund increases the stock price of an oil producer when it makes a significant purchase of its shares. This could be market manipulation. However, what it's lacking is intent. It doesn't say they pumped the price up on purpose. It just says that they wanted to buy this oil producer, and it did raise the share price because it was probably low volume stock. Let's see if C is a better answer. A dealer firm buys and sells stock shares between two accounts under its management to create artificial trading activity. That's the intent that we're looking for. We're creating artificial activity on purpose. So we're going to go with C as a better answer than B. The employees of Lockhurst Traders, a dealer firm, established an equity fund that invests in highly speculative hot issues for their investment portfolios. The employees received permission from their employer before setting up the fund. A company officer pre-clears all securities purchased. The latest security purchased by the fund is issued by a manufacturer that has previously undertaken an IPO of the fund's stock. The employers have agreed with the manufacturer to purchase a large quantity to induce a price increase. That certainly sounds like a violation. The stock will later be sold to clients when its price has doubled. That also sounds like a violation. Which of the following standards is least likely being violated? So 2 of these are violations, 1 is not. A, fair dealing. It sounds like we are certainly violating fair dealing. We're pumping up a stock price, then we're selling it to our clients. That's certainly not fair. B, misrepresentation, and then C, responsibility of supervisors. Between these two, responsibility of supervisors seems like the bigger violation. The company officers are pre-clearing all these trades and they let them set up the fund. The supervisors clearly shouldn't be letting them participate and do this, so it's definitely a violation there. Misrepresentations, they were pretty transparent with the employers. So I think we would lean towards this being least likely violated given the egregiousness of the other 2. Answer B. Rainey Beaupre, CFA, works for an investment advisory firm in the U.S. However, she is working as a registered advisor in Comoro, a nation in the Indian Ocean. The law of Comoro does not require her to disclose the referral fee received for recommendations of investment products. Is Beaupre liable to disclose the referral fee? So in the case of these different entities, so we're a CFA, so we're subject to the code, advisory firm in the US, but working in the Indian Ocean, we always want to follow the most strict of any of these laws. So while this Comoro nation doesn't require it, we should still disclose it. So we should rule out no. And then should we disclose it yes according to Standard 1D misconduct, or yes according to Standard 1A knowledge of the law? This would be C, meaning knowledge of the law. We want to follow the stricter of US, Comoro, and CFA in this case. And the CFA Code of Conduct would certainly want us to disclose this. Answer C. A firm values its assets using fair values. Its asset base comprises of the following asset categories. So category 1, fee-paying discretionary. Category 2, non-fee-paying discretionary. Category 3, fee-paying non-discretionary, and 4, non-fee-paying non-discretionary portfolios. Based on requirements of the Global Investment Performance Standards for periods beginning on or after January 1, 2011, the firm's total assets are most likely the aggregate of all 4 categories, categories 1 and 2, or categories 1, 2, and 3. This one's going to be answer A, all 4 categories. I don't think I have any other value to add here other than make a flashcard and put this to memory. Answer A. According to the CFA Institute Standards of Practice Handbook, which of the following compliance procedures are members and candidates least likely recommended to consider? So least likely, 2 of these are what we should consider, 1 is not. So we've got A, prohibiting employees from sharing clients' details. I think we can rule that out since employees shouldn't be sharing clients' details. They should be practicing confidentiality. B, offering different levels of service to clients on a selective basis. This is potentially okay depending on how these are differentiated. We can offer different levels of service depending on client needs. So I think this would be okay, but let's make sure C is not a better answer. C, limiting the number of employees who know that a recommendation is to be disseminated. That sounds like a good idea as well. If we're limiting the number of people, then it's least likely to leak out before it's supposed to be disseminated, which could be material non-public information that we're letting out and whatnot. So I think B seems like our best answer and is the most okay under these three options. Standard 1A, knowledge of the law, requires members or candidates to most likely: A, document a violation when dissociating themselves from a legal activity. They should probably be doing more than documenting. They should be reporting that. So I'm going to lean towards ruling that out. B, have detailed knowledge of all the laws that could potentially govern their activities. That seems like an okay answer so far. I would say one thing that's difficult is all the laws. We are not necessarily lawyers as charter holders, so it might be too difficult for us to know all of the laws and have detailed knowledge. B, answer C, abide by the rules and regulations related to the administration of the CFA examination. That seems like our best answer so far and the most reasonable. The key here is detailed knowledge of all the laws. We need to understand regulations and everything governing our activities, but detailed knowledge of all is a little overkill. Answer C, when establishing trade allocation procedures for client portfolios, members and candidates should most likely consider giving all client accounts participating in block trades the same execution price and charging the same commission. That sounds fair to clients and is probably our answer. B, execution price and commission on a first in, first out basis. This is going to lead to different execution prices and different commissions. So I think A would be the better answer so far. And C, same execution commission. So that's the same as here, but execution price based on first in, first out basis. We're going to rule that out. The best practice would be giving the clients equitable, same execution price, charging that same commission. Answer A.